My rookie year,
Uh-huh.
we were playing the Chicago Bulls. We're playing this exhibition game, and Michael's going through the motion. So at half, I have 10, and he has 4 points, right? I'm doing all this talking. Michael, who do you think you are? The great Michael Jordan? That's right. There's a new kid on town, right? Kind of looks at me and starts shaking his head. He ended up with 44.
This is Reggie Miller, a daring shooter whose clutch skill and mental toughness revolutionized basketball. One of the best shooters of all time, a 5-time All-Star, and a member of the Hall of Fame. Miller did more than simply play the game. He thrived on situations that evoked drama and passion. However, there were times and competitors that stoked Reggie Miller's ferocity to a new level. Let's examine Miller's 6 most vilified basketball foes and the memorable incidents that shaped their hostility. The Clash, John Starks of Fire. The Knicks-Pacers rivalry in the 1990s was embodied in the matchup between these two players, an argument driven by pride, feelings, and constant slander. Miller's smooth, sharp-shooting style was perfectly complemented by Starks, who was renowned for his unrelenting defense and fierce personality. These two engaged in more than just physical combat on the court. With each possession and dribble, they engaged in mental combat. Game 3 of the 1994 Eastern Conference featured one very memorable matchup. Finals of the Conference. A game that was less like basketball and more like a street brawl. Starks was snarling at Miller from the first whistle, giving him hard fouls and sticking to him like glue on defense. Miller persisted in his tirade of derogatory remarks despite missed shots and close coverage. Then, in the fourth quarter, Miller made the decision to reveal the true identity of the antagonist. He made back-to-back clutch threes with the game on the line, energizing the fans and glaring down Starks with such intensity that it seemed like flames were catching fire between them. According to Miller's scowl, "You can't protect me. I'll never stop talking to you." Already frustrated, John was at his breaking point. Tensions flared, and years later, Miller grinned as he thought back on their rivalry. He was constantly chattering and attempting to irritate me. But you know what? That was what I thrived on. I needed men like him. For me, it was fuel. Starks was more than just his nasty talk, though. During another furious argument, he notoriously headbutted Miller, earning a technical penalty that solidified their animosity. Was more than basketball, in Miller's opinion. It was war. He also enjoyed conflicts that were driven by hatred, passion, and the will to win at all costs. Their fights were for the fans, not the weak of heart. In every way, they were legendary. Patrick Ewing, New York's Goliath. Patrick was much more than just a dominant big man in the Knicks vs. Pacers rivalry. He was the towering force that sent Miller's Pacers home from the playoffs year after year, and he was the heart and soul of New York. For Reggie, defeating Ewing meant outwitting and overwhelming the basketball icon of New York, destroying his presence one match at a time. When the Pacers and Knicks became consistent postseason competitors in the 1990s, Patrick and Miller's arguments became more intense. However, Game 5 of the 1994 Eastern Conference Finals was their most famous matchup, a pivotal moment that cemented Miller's status as one of the NBA's best clutch players. Miller, facing elimination, astonished Madison Square Garden with a performance that included an incredible 25-point fourth quarter and 39 other points. To Ewing's Knicks, every shot he made felt like a dagger. Not only did Miller score, but he also made sure the Knicks knew it. Following a thorough drain, on the sidelines, Miller glared at Spike Lee, the Knicks' celebrity superfan, as he noisily celebrated after making threes over double teams. However, the disparaging remarks continued. Reggie was aware that Patrick controlled the Garden, and each shot he fired eroded that power. He sneered at Ewing, his energy screaming, "Your house, not tonight." In retrospect, Miller referred to that game as one of his proudest moments. On the court, Ewing didn't speak much, but I made sure he listened to me. I was there to remind them to fold every time. Miller was not intimidated by Ewing's quiet might. He actually welcomed the challenge and flourished under the strain to defeat a behemoth. Additionally, defeating the Knicks meant eroding the city's prestige, and beating Patrick Ewing, their pillar, was the first step in that process. New York's bodyguard, Charles Oakley, was a strong, physically fit man who took pride on establishing the tone on the floor and defending teammates. Oakley wasn't scared to get his hands filthy, whether it was using a hard scowl to convey a point or a gaze to silence someone. And each time the Knicks and Pacers faced off, Miller was fully aware of the type of opponent he was facing. However, Miller was not intimidated. He viewed Oakley as a challenge. He was a fierce defender who was driven to destroy the Knicks on the biggest platforms. Miller's mindset was obvious. The sweeter the victory, the tougher the opponent. Additionally, Oakley was the type of opponent who made every match into a full-on brawl. Game 1 of the 1995 Eastern Conference semifinals was a turning point in their fierce rivalry. Miller's game-winning three-pointer late in the game came off an elbow screen that just separated him from Oakley's unrelenting defense. Being outdone did not appeal to Oakley. He pushed Miller after the game. Something about dirty play and cheap shots. Never one to back down, Miller responded with his usual sarcasm. "I'll continue to throw daggers while you continue to throw elbows." Every game was tumultuous and unforgettable because of Oakley's rugged, aggressive style of play, which gave the Knicks Pacers rivalry and advantage. It wasn't Oakley's capacity to scare opponents that was most notable. It was Miller's defiance of Oakley's strategies. Rather, Miller flourished in the commotion, elevating his performance and silencing his detractors and audience during heated exchanges. Their conflicts were contests of willpower that solidified Miller's reputation as a player who flourished under duress, regardless of how difficult the battle became. One of the young guns is Kobe Bryant. Miller never shied away from competing against the greatest. However, Kobe contributed something unique. Miller couldn't overlook the flaming combination of raw talent, attitude, and unmatched competitiveness. Only 21 already, Kobe was taking the stage. He was playing for more than just the win. He desired to rule. Be simple. Unlike Miller's long-running feuds with the Knicks players, their conflicts were different. They were brief but powerful. The most significant spark occurred during a regular season matchup in 2002. Always eager for attention, Miller drained back-to-back threes straight over the young star, grinning and saying, "You truly believed you could protect me?" Kobe wasn't the kind to support dispossession, but the crowd shouted. With an incredible slam that the crowd, Kobe blasted past opponents and destroyed the basket. He pivoted and gestured directly at Miller. There were no words, only a message that was clear to all in the arena. "I'm available to you." After that, trash talk was unavoidable. Kobe responded to Miller's verbal jabs with extreme ferocity and thrilling performance. Neither player was going to give up. Both of them received technical fouls as their animosity flared into a furious altercation. This youthful sensation was pushing himself against a seasoned sharpshooter who still had a lot of stamina. Years later, Miller thought admiringly of Kobe's style of play. Kobe was bold and self-assured. Even if I detested him for it throughout the game, I respected all of those things. Although Miller was certain that Kobe was destined for greatness, he made sure the young gun earned every bit of respect the hard way during those ferocious moments on the court. Alonzo Mourning, the force of feeling. Alonzo, who was well known for his unwavering physical tenacity and defense, approached every game as though it were a personal conflict. And Miller found him to be one of the most intense and annoying opponents he had ever encountered because of that intensity. There was more to every argument with Alonzo than just basketball. It was a conflict between wills. The Pacers' Heat playoff games in the late 1990s and early 2000s marked the height of the rivalry, a chess match between Alonzo's skill at blocking shots and Miller's accuracy. Few people ever had the ability to control the paint like Alonzo did. He intimidated opponents who tried to confront him close to the hoop by swatting shots. Miller, however, didn't hesitate to confront Miami's emotional center head-on. One of their most enduring conflicts took place throughout the third game of the Eastern Conference semifinals in 2000. Miller demonstrated why he was one of the league's most lethal shooters during a fiercely contested series between the Pacers and Heat. Miller drained a crucial three-pointer over Alonzo, who had closed out hard on the shot late in the fourth quarter, as the Pacers were holding on to a narrow lead. Miller didn't celebrate in silence. Instead, he turned and looked down at Alonzo with a defiant, icy expression. Both players engaged in a heated verbal exchange that swiftly got out of hand, ready for whatever came next, standing chest to chest. For Miller, making the shot wasn't enough. The goal was to demonstrate that he was capable of surpassing Alonzo's renowned intensity. Miller averaged 24 points per game at the end of that series, demonstrating his ability to perform well even against Miami's stifling defense under Alonzo. Years later, Miller recalled the fights with Alonzo and remarked, "Zoe was a beast. He forced you to earn each and every basket. However, I relished demonstrating my ability to take action." The battle was about respect and not giving up, according to both athletes. And it wasn't merely a skill-based contest. It was an emotional conflict. The ultimate competitor is Michael Jordan. Then there was Michael Jordan, the greatest of all time, the height of basketball genius, and the one man Miller was never able to completely control. He still tried, though, because he was Miller. He actually thrived on the chance to challenge the man who embodied brilliance. Additionally, no rivalry highlighted Miller's competitive nature, similar to his conflicts with MJ. Game 4 of the 1998 Eastern Conference Finals was their most famous matchup. Everyone anticipated that MJ would end the game with his trademark dominance, and the stakes couldn't have been higher. However, Miller battled valiantly, driven by constant pressure from the Chicago defense and the thunderous Market Square Arena crowd. The play itself was a daring maneuver that astounded even the most scathing critics in the closing seconds, with the Pacers trailing by 1 point. As time ran out, Miller fired the game-winning shot after pushing MJ to create separation. Miller didn't care that it was a move that Bulls supporters still insist was an offensive foul. He screamed triumphantly like a man in possession as he sprinted across the court in jubilation, hands in the air, as the ball swished behind him. Chicago was shocked to learn that the Pacers had tied the series, adding gasoline to one of the most savage rivalries in the NBA. Jordan owned the war, but Miller captured these moments. The series was won by the Bulls in 7 games, demonstrating once more why MJ was unbeatable when it came to winning titles. Miller, meanwhile, was not going to cower under Jordan's shadow. He said, "You got to respect greatness," in reference to the conflicts. "I wasn't there to bow down, though. My purpose was to compete." Furthermore, rivalries shaped his career and established him as one of the game's most daring competitors. So playing against MJ was more than just a challenge. Regardless of whether you supported him or opposed him, there was no doubt about that. Drama always ensued when Miller took the court. Is Miller one of the greatest 5 sharpshooters of all time, in your opinion? Please share your opinions in the comments section. Okay, that's it for today. Remember to click subscribe, and I'll see you in the